Hello, in this video we are going to talk about test planning and the test plan. First of all, I need to tell you that in testing you need to start with a plan that you monitor by using metrics in order to control what you are doing there. It's very important to do this. Without a plan and without monitoring that plan, it all is going to go nowhere. Now, let's go back. Test planning. Test planning applies for each of the 4 test levels that we discussed in the previous video, and you can check the link above for a shortcut to that session. And it should also cover what you want to do, how you want to do it, what is the schedule, and how you are going to monitor that schedule. It's very important to also include the metrics and the way that you are going to monitor and control the plan during the test planning session. Because as I said earlier, without proper monitoring, you will have no control, and without any control, why do you have that plan? Now, during test planning, it is very important to start engaging the stakeholders. Don't wait. Have them brought in as early as possible in order to make sure that you are all in the same boat from the beginning, that you identify all the external dependencies, and that you can put in place proper service level agreements. The key to the test planning phase is the actual test plan. This is a software testing document describing the scope, approach, resources, and schedule for the intended test activities. As I mentioned earlier, this applies to each of the 4 test levels: component, integration, system, and acceptance test. It is a record of the test planning process. So this is why we need to make sure that the test plan is always developed. Now, as a test manager, your role is to define the approach for each of the test levels mentioned before, to make sure that you know what is tested, what are the goals and objectives, and the test techniques and tool that you are going to use. For an effective test planning, we need to consider that there is a complex relationship between the test phases. And we need to make sure that we tailor what we plan and what is our approach to the specific product or project that we are going to test. We need to use the requirements traceability matrix in order to know what will be tested and when and how. And a lot of the time we need to rely on the informal transfer of information, especially between the teams, regardless if they are remote or if they are in the same location. Going back to the test plan, there are several items within the test plan. The reason is not to have a big document, but the reason for the test plan is to make sure that you touch all of these aspects, because by covering all this, you will properly prepare for what's to come. Now, looking at the test plan, of course, we need to be able to identify it and to have an introduction to this document. Usually in this introduction, we highlight the objective to what we want to do. Afterwards, we should detail the test items that are going to be part of this plan, further specify the features that are going to be tested, but also the features that are not in the scope of each current test level, because during component test we look at something, during acceptance test we look at something completely different. Once this is done, once we know what is to be tested and what is not, we define the approach, we define the rules of the game, how we do it, how we plan it, how we implement it, and how we execute it. We define the pass and fail criteria to know when an item is passed and when that specific item is failed. There are some cases, although I haven't used them a lot, but this is the recommended practice, is to define the suspension and resumption criteria. For example, if things go very bad, you need to set a threshold where you just say stop. then rework, redo, and then resume with testing once again. Okay, so we defined our suspension and resumption criteria. It's time to list what are the test deliverables. Okay, we have the test plan, that's clear, but we need to consider test conditions, test cases, test scripts, different levels of test items that need to be logged, need to be tracked, and need to be properly documented and archived, not only for our process, but also for audit purposes or for test process improvement purposes. Okay, we have our test deliverables done. We need to define what are our testing tasks, so we split the activities into multiple subgroups. We define our environment needs. Trust me, you will have a lot to deal with when you're talking about environment. So take it in starting from test planning, follow it with the responsibilities, who needs to do what, and don't only look at the internal team. If you have any external parties involved, look at what they need to do and engage them at this stage. Engage them during test planning and make it clear for everybody, so everybody has an idea what they are doing and what everybody else has to do. If there are some specific staffing or training needs, let's say you need an external consultant to do ABC, or you need an internal department to support, especially during acceptance testing, or especially during non-functional testing, define them here, list them here, talk about them here. It's early. It's time to get the budget or get anything else that you need in order to make sure that you have their availability when you actually need them. Now, as we are talking about the test plan, we must include the schedule. After the schedule, risk and contingency. There is a best practice to always add contingency in your plan. If there is any, document it here and how it is added and how it should be used. And also evaluate all the risks that you currently have identified in order to understand what you can accept, what you need to mitigate, what you need to ensure, or any other risk mitigation approach that you need to use. And at the end, have this document reviewed and approved by the stakeholders that need to be involved and engaged. Don't forget about the approval process, because this is them taking responsibility that they're in there with you. You don't do this document alone. You don't do the testing alone. This is a project or this is a product, and it relies on a team and sometimes on external parties. Get them on board, have them sign, and then move forward. Now, in the next video, we are going to talk about metrics. I know I mentioned them earlier, and it's just going to be a short intro on metrics and how to monitor and control the test plan during the activities.